There's something you do that you've never noticed. When someone raises their voice at you, your heart races before you even decide to feel afraid. When criticism lands, your chest tightens before your mind can process the words. You've spent your whole life believing your reactions belong to you. They don't. They belong to everyone who ever learned how to push your buttons. And the most unsettling truth, you handed them the instruction manual. There is a rare psychological state that only a small percentage of people ever access, a stillness so profound it makes others deeply uncomfortable, not because it's aggressive, but because it cannot be controlled. The ancient philosophers knew about it. Psychologists have studied it, and most people will live their entire lives never understanding why it holds so much power. What comes next may change how you see yourself forever. Imagine a man screaming in your face. His veins are visible, his voice is cracking. Every fiber of his being is desperate for one thing: a reaction. He needs you to yell back. He needs you to defend yourself. He needs you to enter the emotional chaos he's created, because that chaos is the only place where he feels powerful. Now imagine, you do nothing. You don't blink. You don't frown. You don't look away. You simply watch him, the way a calm witness observes a storm passing through. You are completely still. In that moment, something shifts. The entire dynamic flips. His anger becomes confusion, and that confusion becomes something closer to fear, because he realizes he cannot touch you, he cannot read you, he cannot move you. He's throwing his entire emotional weight at you, and you're absorbing it like it was never meant for you at all. This creates a psychological glitch in the human mind. It terrifies people. It makes them question their own reality. And today, we're going to explore why. This video is about something most people never learn to develop. It's not anger management, it's not suppression, it's not pretending you don't feel. It's the psychology of becoming unmovable, not through force, but through a kind of inner stillness that changes the way people experience you. Centuries ago, the philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli observed this trait in the leaders who survived the most dangerous political climates in history. He noticed that the men who wore their emotions openly, who showed their anger, their insecurity, their desperation, were predictable, and predictability made them easy to manipulate. But the ones who could remain composed under pressure, they became untouchable, not because they didn't feel, but because they had mastered something most people never will: the space between stimulus and response. By the end of this video, you'll understand why most people live as emotional puppets, and how to become the one who finally cuts the strings. You'll learn how reactivity became wired into your nervous system and how to begin rewiring it. You'll see why the calmest person in the room often holds the most psychological influence, and you'll walk away with a framework for protecting your peace without abandoning your humanity. Let's begin. Let's be honest about where most of us live. You've had moments where someone said one sentence and it ruined your entire day. A single look, a passive-aggressive comment, an email written in a tone that felt dismissive, and suddenly you're spiraling, replaying it, rehearsing what you should have said, feeling the heat rise in your chest even hours later. You've had moments where you snapped and immediately regretted it, where you said something out of anger that didn't even reflect how you actually felt. You've laid awake at night, not because of what someone did to you, but because of how you responded. You've been in conversations where your hands were shaking, where you were talking too fast, trying to explain yourself, trying to be understood, while the other person just watched you unravel. And maybe the worst part, you've looked at other people who stay calm under pressure, who never seem rattled, and wondered, what do they have that I don't? Here's the painful truth most people don't want to admit. You are not in control of your reactions. Someone compliments you and your mood lifts. Someone criticizes you and your mood crashes. Someone gives you attention, you feel worthy. Someone withdraws, you feel abandoned. You believe you're free, but your emotional state is dictated by whoever happens to be in front of you. Your peace has become public property, and deep down, that doesn't just feel frustrating, it feels unsafe. Because if anyone can disturb your calm, then you're never really at rest. You're always scanning, always bracing, always one comment away from losing yourself. This is what it means to live in psychological reactivity, and it's exhausting. To understand why this pattern is so deeply embedded, we have to look at its origins. Human beings are social animals. For most of our evolutionary history, survival depended on the tribe. If you were accepted, you lived. If you were rejected, you died. So we evolved a deep neurological need for feedback. We needed to know, am I safe? Am I accepted? Do I belong? This is why, to this day, social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between being left out and being left behind. Now here's where it becomes a trap. In modern life, this feedback seeking has become chronic. You're not scanning for predators, you're scanning for disapproval. You're not trying to survive the wilderness, you're trying to survive a meeting, a conversation, a glance from someone you respect. And because validation feels like safety, you've learned to shape yourself around it. You've learned to react quickly, emotionally, visibly, because that's how you've always gotten feedback. If you cry, maybe they'll comfort you. If you get angry, maybe they'll take you seriously. If you explain yourself, maybe they'll finally understand. Your reactions became your survival strategy. But the problem is this: that strategy was designed for childhood. It was designed for environments where you had no power, where the only influence you had was emotional expression. You are no longer that child, and yet your nervous system hasn't received the update. Let's use a metaphor. Imagine your emotional self as a house made of glass. Everyone who interacts with you can see exactly what's happening inside. They see the gears turning. They see the flash of hurt. They see the tension in your jaw. And because they can see it, they can use it. If someone knows that criticism makes you spiral, they can use criticism to destabilize you. If someone knows that silence makes you anxious, they can withhold communication and watch you chase. If someone knows that rejection makes you desperate, they can pull away and wait for you to beg. This is not a theory. This is how manipulation actually works. Manipulators don't need to be smart. They just need you to be transparent. Now imagine a different kind of person. This person feels everything: pain, anger, longing, fear, but their internal world is not visible. They've built what psychologists might call an emotional citadel. On the outside, they're calm, measured, still. On the inside, they're processing, choosing, deciding what to reveal and what to protect. They've become, in psychological terms, a black box. You can see the input. Something happens to them. You can see the output. They respond, but you cannot see the internal processing. And that ambiguity, that stillness, it shifts the entire dynamic. When people cannot predict you, they cannot control you. When people cannot read you, they project their own insecurities onto you. And very often, they begin to respect you more. Not because you're aggressive, not because you're cold, but because you're grounded, you're solid, you're not available to be destabilized. This is the psychological mechanism that makes composure so powerful, and the ancient thinkers understood it long before modern psychology gave it a name. Let's go deeper. The psychiatrist Viktor Frankl survived the Nazi concentration camps. He witnessed horrors most of us cannot imagine, and yet in the darkest environment on earth, he made a discovery that would shape modern psychology. He wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." This space, this tiny gap between what happens and how you react, is everything. Most people have no space. Something happens and they react instantly. The stimulus touches the response like a live wire. An insult comes in and the anger is already on their face. Rejection comes in and the desperation is already in their voice. Criticism comes in and the defensiveness is already in their body. They are fused with their environment. But there is another way. When you widen that gap, even by a fraction of a second, something miraculous happens. You realize, I am not my reaction. I am the one who chooses it. This is not suppression. Suppression is when you push emotion down and pretend it's not there. That creates pressure. That causes explosions later. This is containment. Think of a nuclear reactor. Inside the core, there is immense energy. Heat, chaos, power, but the walls, thick, reinforced, deliberate, hold it in. On the outside, the building is still. It hums quietly, it radiates control. You don't stop feeling. You build better walls. And those walls aren't made of numbness. They're made of awareness, of choice, of alignment with your values. Now let's look at what happens in the brain. When you're triggered, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, activates before your prefrontal cortex can process the situation. This is why reactions feel automatic. They are, but with practice, you can train your prefrontal cortex, the rational, decision-making part, to come online faster. This is what meditation does, what breathwork does, what intentional pausing does. You're not fighting your biology, you're upgrading it. And when you do, you gain something that most people never access, the ability to respond instead of react. Reaction is unconscious, it's reflexive, it's survival. Response is chosen, it's strategic, it's sovereign. Let me give you a scenario. You're in a meeting. A colleague undermines you publicly, makes a sarcastic comment about your work in front of others. The reactive version of you feels the heat rise. You shoot back a retort. You look around the room for validation. You defend yourself urgently, and in doing so, you enter their frame. You've just lost. Now imagine the contained version of you. You hear the comment. You feel the flash of irritation, but it doesn't reach your face. You pause. You look at the colleague. Maybe you nod slowly. Maybe you write something down. And then you continue as if they didn't speak. What just happened? They threw a grenade and it didn't explode. It vanished. Now they're destabilized. Did he hear me? Did he not care? Is he writing something down? Is he going to respond later? You've shifted the power dynamic without saying a word. This is not manipulation. This is self-mastery. And when you carry yourself this way, people feel it. They sense the weight of someone who cannot be easily moved. In a world of reactivity, the person who remains still becomes magnetic. Now let's talk about what changes when you start practicing this. At first, it will feel unnatural. Your nervous system has been conditioned for decades. The urge to react will be strong. The silence will feel uncomfortable. But if you stay with it, if you practice widening the gap, something shifts. You stop explaining yourself. You used to feel the need to justify every decision, to make sure people understood your reasoning, to prove that you're competent, that you're good, that you're not the villain. That need begins to dissolve because you realize you don't need everyone to understand you. You need to understand yourself. You stop chasing validation. You used to refresh your phone looking for replies. You used to feel anxious when someone didn't respond. You used to perform for approval. Now you start asking, why do I need their approval? What wound is this covering? And when you find the wound, you stop chasing. You stop being moved by other people's chaos. Someone comes to you with drama, with urgency, with emotional intensity. Before, you would have absorbed it. You would have matched their energy. You would have been pulled into the storm. Now, you stay in the eye. You listen. You witness. But you don't drown. And something beautiful happens. Other people start to feel safer around you, because when you're not reactive, you become a container for their emotions. You become someone they can trust in a crisis, not because you're cold, but because you're steady. You stop apologizing for your existence. You used to shrink yourself, edit yourself, walk on eggshells around people who never met you halfway. Now you stand, not arrogantly, not loudly, just firmly. You start trusting yourself. Decisions become clearer. Boundaries become easier. You stop second-guessing every word because you've built a relationship with your inner world. You've learned to process rather than project. And for the first time, maybe in your entire life, you feel at home in yourself. This is the transformation that awaits. Not becoming a machine, not becoming cold, becoming whole. Someone who feels everything but isn't ruled by it. Someone who can sit in discomfort without running. Someone who doesn't need the external world to validate what they already know inside. That version of you is not far away. It's already within you, waiting for permission. But here's what no one tells you about this path. When you stop being reactive, not everyone will celebrate. In fact, some people will resist it because your reactivity served them. Your people-pleasing made their life easier. Your defensiveness gave them leverage. Your emotional volatility made you easier to control. When you stop playing the game, some people will accuse you of being cold, distant, arrogant, emotionally unavailable. These accusations are not always accurate. Sometimes they're projections, because your stillness forces them to look at their own chaos. Your boundaries reveal their entitlement. Your peace exposes their need for drama. This is the dark side of transformation. The old version of you had relationships built on dysfunction. Some of those relationships will not survive your healing. And that grief is real. There's another danger. Your own ego will fight you. Part of you wants to react, wants to be right, wants the last word. That part of you has been running the show for years. It won't give up easily. You'll be tested over and over. Someone will push your buttons and the old wiring will flare. You'll want to snap back. You'll feel the heat rise. And in that moment, you'll have a choice. React and stay the same, or pause and become someone new. Every time you choose the pause, you reinforce the new pattern. Every time you react impulsively, you feed the old one. This is the battle, and it's lifelong, but it gets easier. The gap widens, the stillness deepens, the triggers lose their charge. One day, you'll realize you haven't been destabilized in weeks, maybe months, and that quiet victory will mean more than any argument you ever won. Now let's move from insight to application. Here are 6 practices that will help you build this skill, not as a concept, but as a way of being. Practice 1, the sacred pause. Whenever you feel the impulse to react, whether to a comment, an email, a situation, stop. Take one breath. Just one. In that breath, ask, what do I actually want to happen here? This tiny delay activates your prefrontal cortex. It pulls you out of survival mode and into choice. Start small, in low-stakes moments. Build the muscle. Practice 2, label the emotion. When a feeling arises, name it silently. I notice I'm feeling defensive. I notice I'm feeling rejected. I notice I'm feeling the urge to prove myself. Labeling creates distance. It turns you from the emotion into the observer of the emotion, and observers have options. Practice 3. Delay your response. In conversations, practice taking 2 to 3 seconds before replying, not awkwardly, just calmly. This retrains your nervous system to pause before output, and interestingly, it often makes you appear more thoughtful, more confident, more grounded. People respect those who don't rush. Practice 4. Study your triggers. Every strong reaction is a doorway to self-knowledge. Ask yourself, why did that get to me? What old wound does this touch? What belief about myself is being threatened? Triggers are not weaknesses, they're signals. They tell you where your healing work remains. Go toward the discomfort, not away from it. Practice 5. Embrace strategic silence. You don't have to fill every silence. You don't have to respond to every provocation. Sometimes, the most powerful move is no move. Let people sit with their own words. Let the air hold the tension, and watch how often they walk back what they said, or reveal more than they intended. Silence is a tool. Learn to wield it with precision. Practice. 6. Develop outcome. Orientation. Before any challenging interaction, ask yourself, what outcome do I want? Not what emotion do I want to express? Not what point do I want to prove? What outcome do I want? When you focus on outcomes, your reactions become strategic, not emotional. You stop playing to win the moment and start playing to win the game. These practices are not about becoming less human. They're about becoming more intentional. They're about reclaiming your nervous system from the autopilot that's been running it since childhood, and they're about building the kind of self-trust that no external situation can shake. Now we arrive at the deepest truth, and I want you to let this land slowly. The skill we've been describing, this ability to remain still in the face of chaos, is not really about power over others. It's about power over yourself. When you can sit with your own discomfort without acting out, when you can feel the heat of anger without letting it burn bridges, when you can hold space for your pain without projecting it onto the world, you become free. Not free from feeling, free from being controlled by feeling, not free from challenge, free from being shattered by challenge. This is the ultimate form of self-respect. It says, I will not abandon myself in a moment of pressure. It says, my peace is not for sale. It says, no one else gets to decide how I show up. And here is the paradox. The moment you stop needing the world to validate you is the moment the world begins to respect you. Because people can feel it. They can feel the weight of someone who is not desperate. They can feel the steadiness of someone who knows their worth. They can feel the groundedness of someone who has made peace with themselves. That presence, that unshakable presence, is not something you perform. It's something you become. And once you become it, nothing will ever control you again. So here's what I want to leave you with. You've lived a long time with a nervous system that wasn't really yours. It was shaped by childhood, by pain, by the need to survive in environments that didn't always hold you safely. And it made sense. Every reaction you developed was a form of protection, but you're not in those environments anymore, and the protection has become a prison. What this video has offered is not a trick. It's an invitation to reclaim the space between what happens and how you respond. An invitation to stop being pulled by every passing comment, every disapproving glance, every moment of tension. An invitation to come home, not to someone else's version of strength, but to your own quiet center. You were never meant to be a puppet. You were never meant to perform for validation. You were meant to be rooted, grounded, unmoved by the chaos of a world that has forgotten how to be still. And now you're remembering, not because someone gave you permission, but because you finally gave it to yourself. That is the beginning of true power. If this video stirred something in you, I want you to take a moment. In the comments, share one situation where you wish you had responded instead of reacted. Not to relive the shame, but to witness yourself with compassion. Because awareness is where change begins. If you want to go deeper into the psychology of emotional regulation, self-mastery, and inner peace, subscribe to Psyphora. We explore these topics every week, with depth, with nuance, and always with your healing in mind. And if this message found you at the right time, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes a single video changes everything. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.